Excellent. All right. Hey, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're sitting down with a repeat guest and one of my favorite human beings, Amber Cantorna, who's going to talk to us about a project she's working on called Unashamed Love Collective. So, Amber, welcome back to the show. It's always an honor to connect with you.
Thanks so much for having me. I always love chatting with you as well.
Thank you. So, you have this online community, this gathering of sorts has been going on for a full 3 seasons, right? About to enter into the 4th one. And I really think that I've done some perusing on the website, and I think that this is a kind of a gathering that more people need to know about, because a lot of my listeners I know seem to be asking for this sort of thing, and you're doing it. And the gathering is called the Unashamed Love Collective, like I said. I was hoping we could just kick it off with maybe you sharing with us a little bit about what this is, some of the background, and tell us all the things you want to or don't want to share about
it. Well, yeah, it really is. It was kind of my pandemic baby, when like the world shut down and
everybody has one, right?
Right. Yeah. It's like the world shut down. We're artists. We can't speak. We can't travel. We can't do events. Now what, Yeah. And so this was kind of my pandemic baby, my brainchild. And it was my way of like, what can we do to still bring people together and cultivate community and find commonality in our stories? And so that was kind of how it was birthed. And it started with kind of the idea of bringing books from LGBTQ faith authors and allies, and let's read a different book each month and discuss it, and then host the author live at the end of the month for a live discussion. And that's kind of how it started. And it's been so fun, but then it's evolved from there into being so much more and so much more of a broader community that really hosts, it's so much more than just a book club, it's not just reading and discussing, but it's community and it's family, and it's where people have found belonging and support for deconstructing and for coming out and for moving away from evangelical backgrounds and just finding that commonality where we can really ask hard questions and hold space for one another in the hard things. And I love that about it more than anything. I love seeing the way that people have connected with one another in that space.
Yeah. So it started as one thing and kind of evolved into something that you probably didn't even envision, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I really did want it to be more of a community base, but to see that actually happening and we've had so many people going through major life transitions that have said, this is my family. This is my, this is better than therapy. This is where I go for my support system. And you'll see people post things it's a private online community. So I love that, because if you're not out or you don't want to be public, nobody can see that you're in there. It's completely private space. And so I love that. And then they can get in there and ask really hard questions about life and faith and sexuality and identities and beliefs, and know that the people there are going to hold space for those hard things and they're not going to be judged, and I love that so much.
That's really good. So what would you say is like it's obviously one of the big things, but like what's the biggest thing that you would say is going to be different for people who get involved with this that's maybe different from another group that they're in? Because there are like those closed Facebook groups, and like we have one, for instance, at the What If Project. Like it's a closed Facebook group. We have about 300 people in there, and it's a private place and people can ask questions, things like that. And there's a lot of those like floating around. A lot of podcasts have those, but like what would you say makes this Love Collective stand out from all those other kinds of groups?
Well, I think there's a few things. One is that it's got more structure to it. So, we do pick a book each month by an LGBT author or ally. And we're even branching out a little bit from there and starting to explore other marginalized communities instead of just kind of being solely LGBT, because our community base is, we've got a lot of LGBTQ people in there, but we've also got a lot of allies. We've got people that, were formerly faith leaders that have been kicked out of their denominations or whatever.
That doesn't happen, does it?
Community, no. We've got a lot of parents of LGBT kids. And so we're kind of branching out to even explore other marginalized communities and how we can support people of color and people with disabilities and all these different marginalized identities. Because I think it's important as allies and as people of marginalized communities that we support other marginalized communities. We're not just for ourselves, we need to be for everybody. And that makes us stronger as a whole. And so I think having some of that structure around our meetings. So we do pick our book, and then I post discussion questions each week in the group. So it kind of gives some facilitated dialogue or a springboard, at least, for people to jump off of and have some discussion. And then the last Monday of every month, we gather online and we do breakout groups and with guided discussion questions where they can dialogue in person in small groups of 4 or 5 and talk about the content of the book. And then we do host a live interview with the author of our book, which is always super fun and exciting. We've hosted Brian McLaren and Nadia Boltz-Weber and Jennifer Knapp and Reba Riley. And we've just had so many great people that have come in and shared with us. And so we do this kind of moderated dialogue for 40 minutes or so, and then we open it up for Q&A, so the audience gets to actually interact with the author and ask personal questions in kind of a little bit smaller space than you would at maybe a corporate event or that you attend. So I think that sets us apart. And we also do things like a mid-month hangout every month, kind of the second week of the month, where people can just get together and hang out online and get to know each other. Sometimes they play games and just different ways to kind of build community and foster community. We've started launching this last season where we do quarterly events that are open to the public. And so each quarter we host an event around some topic that's not tied to a book. And so we have done one like on the Pray Away documentary that released on conversion therapy. We've done one on boundaries and mental health. We're getting ready to do one in a couple of weeks on anti-racism and how to be an ally in the anti-racism work. And so we do bring in a guest speaker for each of those as well and facilitate a dialogue around that. And we're getting ready to do another one on like deconstructing purity culture and sexual shame and sexual trauma. So trying to bring in those big topics that we often are all struggling with, but don't really have maybe the tools to heal from or the connections or the space. And that's, I think, really set us apart as well.
That's awesome. Do you do they vote on the topics in the books, or is there do you put it out there for the group to kind of decide on what they want, or is it more, does it come from you? How does that work?
We've done kind of a mixture of those things. So initially when I first launched, I gave everybody a voice of these are a number of books that we could choose, and they kind of voted on where they wanted to start and go from there. We have done voting in terms of what do you want these events to look like? What topics would you like to see presented at these quarterly events? And that's kind of led some of that. And then some of it has been led by me as well, trying to figure out the best way to lead people forward, because we started with, we started in a place that was kind of primarily LGBT faith focused, and we're kind of evolving out from there. So I'm kind of trying to do research and push people to think about other marginalized identities, other faiths that people are coming from, because not everybody identifies as Christian still, or even faith at all. We've got people that are atheist and agnostic and Jewish in this group, and thinking about how we can be more interfaith and people of faith as a collective whole, rather than pigeonholing us into just being one thing, people that are progressive Christians or ex-evangelicals or whatever, trying to be a little bit more broad in that.
Sure. Was that always the vision, or did it start as kind of gearing towards the more ex-evangelical crowd? Did you always have this interfaith idea, or did it kind of evolve into that as it went on?
I think it's evolved, because I would say that the majority of people in this space do come from that background. They do come from that kind of evangelical background, and they're deconstructing and moving forward. And so I would say that the majority of that is kind of where, and I think that's how people tend to find me and find the work that I do is through that space. But then I'm just encouraging people to look further and to push the boundaries a little bit outside of what maybe they've done so far. And a lot of them are already doing that. So it's just facilitating a space for them to be able to have that dialogue and connect with others and learn and grow and ask questions,
Yeah,
so
I think people need that
over time.
Yeah, I think people need that permission slip. I think so many people come out of that world, and even though you start to think about things differently, you still kind of have those lingering thoughts in the back of your head that I can't go too far. I crossed a couple boundaries, but I can't go over this boundary. But I think once they see somebody like yourself who grew up in that world, and has seen that person walk over those boundaries themselves, it kind of gives them more permission to feel like it's okay for me to explore a little bit further beyond this point where I'm at now.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of this delicate balance of both giving them a voice. We're starting to open up volunteer roles and ways that they
That's
can
cool.
kind of participate so that they feel like they're part of this community and they have a voice and this more sense of belonging. And so I love that. And so I kind of try to balance that with making sure they feel like they have a voice and a say in kind of the direction that we go, while also leading them, right? And helping them think beyond maybe where they've thought already, and just trying to open up that space for them to explore a little bit further.
Yeah. And I think the interfaith piece is so good. Have you had Barbara Brown Taylor on there yet?
No.
No, because she wrote the book, what's it called? Holy Envy.
Yes.
Yeah. And she wrote
Yes.
about just that whole idea of being a professor of a world religion class and like all the different things that she was learning about all these different religions, and like just kind of becoming like deepening her own faith in Christ. But like, she's like, I was just so many things from like Hinduism and Buddhism were like fascinating to me to bring that in. I think that's just such a beautiful thing to do, that, as you know, growing up in the world you did and the world I did, that was off limits. It was like Christianity or the highway. And don't you dare even entertain anything that comes from that world over there.
Yeah, we did read Post-Traumatic Church Syndrome by Reba Riley. Have you read that one?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet.
Oh, it's so good. But she kind of does that. She kind of has this like eat, pray, love experience on more of a local level because she's got chronic illness. Sure. And so she went and decided to visit 30 religions by her 30th birthday. And talks about exploring all these different things and all these different experiences. And it's one of my favorite books. And then we got to host a conversation with her, and she was just fantastic. So awesome. I love that book. I think it's really good to kind of just to learn and to see what we can glean from other perspectives, right?
Sure.
Because we've kind of been taught that our way is the only way. But there's so much more to that. There's so much more that we can explore and learn.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that when you start to look at the Bible, like, that's our background. So you start to look at the Bible through that particular lens. I think for a Christian, it can open up the world so much wider, right? Because if you look at the teachings of Jesus through the closed lens of it's our way or the highway, it looks one way. But if you look at the teachings of Jesus through the lens of there's everybody's welcome, all of a sudden, I think those teachings look drastically different.
So much different. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think Richard Rohr talked about how it's like a diamond that you're always turning, and no matter however the light hits it, it just looks totally different. So I think that's really cool that you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
In your group. So what would you say is like I don't know, like if somebody were thinking about joining this group, getting involved, and like what's your hope for that person who's kind of on the outside looking into this, and they're thinking, maybe I do want to do this, maybe I don't really know. But like if they were to sign up, like what's your hope for their life? Like how is this going to kind of change their life, or maybe enhance their life, or help them enhance the lives of people around them?
Well, I hope that it feels like coming home, like they finally kind of found this safe haven and place to rest. I think a lot of people in the group feel that way already. And that's why they just keep coming back. Like we've got a high retention rate because of that. It's one thing that you'll get out of it what you put into it, so some people, maybe the time that we meet doesn't work for them, but we always record it and post it live or post it in our private group so that if you can't make it live, you still have access to it. So there's people that, maybe aren't as active in the group and kind of watch from a bird's eye and, watch things virtually and don't participate as much. And then there's other people that are they're posting, they're engaging, they're, really active. And so you kind of will get out of it whatever you put into it. Yeah. And there's a lot of options for you. But I think a lot of people in the group already feel like this is my safe space. This is my home. And more than anything, obviously I hope that you learn. I hope that you grow. I hope that it expands your understanding, all those things. But I hope more than anything that you feel like, oh, I've found my place. I belong here. I'm safe here. We've had people that are, going through divorce and coming out and getting married and all these things. And it's just this beautiful place where you can celebrate that and, or mourn that, or ask the hard questions of, I just came out to my parents and it didn't go well. And now what? And I feel like I can share that here and be safe. And, and knowing that people instantly just jump in and support you. And it's like, we've got you, we're holding space for you, we're here. and often are connecting even outside of the group, right? And exchanging information. And my hope is that as it grows, people will find more pockets of members that are located where they live, right?
Yeah.
So we've had like 7 or 8 people in the area where I live, and we've started getting together like once a month and doing things,
cool.
and
like
barbecue.
A breakout. Yeah.
Yeah. So then it's like, so we have created a contact list that is like optional for people that want to be able to find other people in their area. And then it's like, okay, go grab coffee and get to know each other in person, or connect. We had somebody that was getting married in Ohio, and somebody from Florida was just happening to travel through Ohio at that same time. And they ended up getting to go to their wedding and support them. And it was just fantastic because they didn't have a lot of family and, a lot of support. And so being able to just really, other people have connected and be like, oh, I live in this super small town, but I know this person that from the other side,
right.
And they're just like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I can't believe we both love these same people. And so I love that. I love seeing those overlaps and the ways that people are connecting and finding that community in that safe space.
Yeah. It sounds, excuse the word, but it sounds an awful lot like church in a way. It feels like it's the way that church should be, right?
That church should be, right?
Yeah, like it's this collective of people from various backgrounds with different experiences at various places on their journey, whether they're advanced, they're beginning, they've ditched the whole thing, whatever it is, but everybody's welcome at this table and has a voice in learning and sharing. And I think that's
you're
wonderful.
not the first person to say that, where it's like, it sounds like church, but I'm like,
I don't want to trigger people with that word.
It's not church,
that, right?
But it's what it should be. Like, it's, and we've had people even in the group say that. It's like, this is what I've always wanted church to be, and so for them to say that means so much to me, because that means it's working. Like we're doing it,
Yeah. It's funny because when my dissertation was about how the church can use social media and technology to connect people together and connect people to God or the divine or whatever. And I remember when I voiced my desire to do this as my project, I got so much kickback. And this was pre-COVID. And people were like, oh, you can't, you have to have the in-person relationships. You need to have the, the flesh and the blood. Like you have to really be able to interact with people. And like, if you just do virtual, people are going to be, the connections aren't going to be deep. And I was like, no, I really don't think that's true. Like, I really think that this technology can be used. It can obviously be used in ways that aren't good, but I think that we could use it in ways that will really enhance people's relationships. And then when COVID hit, I was like,
you're right.
Would anybody like to read my dissertation? Because I have it here. It's like a how-to guide, but I think that like what you're doing really proves the point is that, there's some people who just want to engage at a virtual level. Like they're just going to engage through maybe the chat, or they're just going to engage through Zoom. But then you have those other people who they live near each other, and all of a sudden what's virtual turns into a literal, flesh and blood meeting, physical meeting where you get together with somebody, where there's coffee, a party, a barbecue, whatever. I think that's the beauty of it, is that no matter where you are in your journey, whatever your comfort level is, you can engage in it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And what I love about the virtual too, is that we're meeting across, like we've got people from coast to coast. We've got people that are, we've even had, like we've got somebody from the Philippines, and somebody in China, and several in Canada, and somebody in France. And like, so it's reaching broader. And then like the age range is so great too. We've got people in their early 20s all the way till like the mid 70s. And so you've got so much diversity in this space, and so much wisdom, and so much experience and perspectives, right? Yeah. And so you get to bring these questions to the table, and everybody's answers in some ways feel so similar, and yet so many different perspectives from different experiences, depending on where they live or where they grew up, or what generation they're in. And it's just such a neat thing to be able to see that. And I really value just the diversity that we have within that as well.
That's cool. So I know the introverts are probably wondering, how many people are in a meeting? Are we talking about like there's a smaller group? Is it a larger group? Like how many people log on to?
Well, right now our size is about 50, and we're hoping to grow that this next season.
Yeah.
Not everybody makes that live. I would say there's usually about 30 people live on our Zoom calls, and then the other people will watch it, in the group when they have a chance.
Sure.
The breakouts are usually in groups of like 4 or 5.
Okay.
So you have the option to opt into a permanent break group if you want to.
Okay.
So some people are like, oh, I love meeting new people each month and having different people in my space. And some people that are more introverted are like, no, I kind of want to get to know the same 3 or 4 people and just have them all season long.
Yeah.
And so we've experimented with that this season and been able to have kind of a set group for people that really want that consistency each month, knowing that they're going to see the same people in their group.
It's like a cohort that sticks
kind
together.
of,
Yeah. That's cool. So it kind of gives that ability to kind of build a deeper relationship with the people in the group, as opposed to feeling a small connection with everybody. You feel a deeper connection with a few.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like that. So who's on deck for this season? Can you?
So for this coming up season,
Yeah.
let's see, we've got, starting in March, we're going to launch with Pariah Hazuri. Her book came out about a year ago. It's called Found in Transition. And she's a mother of a trans child.
Wow. Okay.
And so she's the first parent of an LGBT child that we've featured. So I'm really excited about her. She's an Iranian woman that now lives in California. And I just loved her story in her book. So we're launching season 4 with her.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm really excited. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a great read. It's not faith-based at all, but I think it's such a great story and really valuable from a parent's perspective.
Okay.
So we're launching with her.
Yeah.
We are going to do Stacy Chomiak's new book, Still Stace. That just released. She's a Canadian author and animator. And so it's kind of geared a little bit more towards young adults, but I feel like everybody can glean from it because it's something that we've all experienced and gone through. And I think we need so many more resources like that. Yeah. And we need to have those available for our kids. And so we're going to feature her. And I just love the work that she did. She drew all the pictures for her book.
That's
and
cool.
she, I just released, I want to say maybe 2 months ago.
Okay.
It's not been out very long. So you should check it out if you haven't yet.
I will. Yeah.
She's just fantastic.
Okay.
So we're going to feature her. We're going to do John Pavlovich in his new book.
Yeah.
If God is love, don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
So we're going to feature him. We haven't had
That's
him
such a John
yet, so.
title.
I know it is. I love John.
Yeah.
And we haven't had him yet. So I'm super excited that he's joining us.
That's cool.
So he'll be on deck for season 4. We're going to do one called Life It Isn't Binary. And it's written by 2 people who identify as non-binary. Mm-hmm. But it also talks a lot about just the binaries of life that we tend to fall into, or that culture has kind of pushed us into, mm-hmm. in ways that we can kind of push ourselves to live outside of those binaries that we've kind of been, boxed into.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, I'm excited about that. So we're gonna host the author of, or one of the authors at least, of that book.
Okay.
And then we'll do Faith Shift by Kathy Escobar.
Okay.
Because we had Faith After Doubt last season with Brian McLaren.
Yeah.
And people resonated with it so much. It was like one of the highest raved about things that we had done. And so I decided to kind of do something similar to that by bringing in Kathy and doing Faith Shift.
Okay.
And then we're going to do Chasten Buttigieg's book. I have something to say. And I don't have Chasten on board to interview. He's our only one we don't have to interview yet, but I'm gonna keep working at it.
Not yet. You'll get him.
Not yet. We'll get him. I know he's got twins now, so so the ratio may have gone down a little bit, but
sure.
But I still feel like it's an important story to feature that a lot of people are going to relate to, because it's Midwestern, country boy, growing up gay, and so I think it's just a great story to feature. And I try to make sure that each season we've got as much diversity as possible, right? So we've got, we're featuring LGBTQ authors, we're featuring allies, but we're also featuring people of color, and we're featuring people with different perspectives and faith-based systems, and, like trying to man and woman and non-binary and trans, and just trying to make sure that we've got as much diversity packed into one season as possible.
Yeah.
So
I think you're modeling for people like what it looks like to be an ally, I think, because you have a platform that you've built, and you have a platform now with this collective that you've brought people together, and it's like you're bringing people into this virtual stadium of sorts, and then you're handing the microphone to these people and you're letting them share their story. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. I love it so much. It's become so meaningful to me, and just really cool to watch it happen, to watch it kind of flourish,
Yeah. So that was six books you just mentioned, right, for the season?
Yep. So our seasons are 6 months long.
Okay.
So when you join, you pay a membership fee of $30 a month.
Okay.
And that keeps the trolls away. So we don't have like the trolls creeping into our group and causing problems.
No, that doesn't happen. Anyway.
So I love it because it really does keep kind of this safe gate around our people and what we do.
Yeah. That's $1 a day. That's not.
No, yeah, it's not bad. And then it also helps cover our overhead costs and our speaker fees and all that kind of thing. Yeah. So you get to be a part of that. And then you get, all the things that I've listed, and you get discounted rates for our quarterly events and all those kind of things. But we go in 6-month increments. So registration's only open twice a year. Okay. And I do that very intentionally so that we register and then we close it off. Yeah. And you have 6 months to be in that safe space and grow and learn together. Because I feel like if you have this constant influx of people coming and going, you never really get that safe space,
like church.
Yeah, church or many other things.
Right.
Where there's this kind of constant coming and going.
Yeah.
And so in this, then it's like, okay, now we know who's in, and we can close it off for the season, and we can just build community together. Yeah. And so we do that every 6 months.
Yeah. And so there's no pressure to, obviously, you can kind of come and go. I guess I could say, like, you could sign up for a season, maybe next season, life happens, things happen.
Yep.
Can't do it. But then maybe the following year, the next season, you want to jump back in again.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. You have people that do that?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do. We have people, we've got a high retention rate, but then we do have people that are like, I just can't right now. Life is happening. I got to take care of this. But I'm going to be back, and so they just take a season off and then they come back. And I love that too. You just commit a season at a time.
Yeah. Okay. So people leave this chat with us and they go to your website, they sign up. What's next? Like, what can they expect in their email box after they sign up?
So registration is open now,
yep.
February 1st through February 28th.
Yep.
And once you sign up, we will then get you, you'll fill out a survey. Just tell us a little bit about who you are, how you identify, how you found us. And then we will get you the link to our private group. Okay. You will not be admitted into, because we're still, our season is still finishing up in February. So you will not be admitted to the group until until March 1st.
Okay.
And March 1st, we'll launch our season. And then you'll be welcomed in, and we'll open like a welcome thread where people can introduce themselves and get to know one another in that space. And we'll update contact lists, and we always host a new member orientation so that people can come and get kind of the lowdown of how to connect and how to get the best, the most use out of their time and their money, and how to really engage. And so we usually do that the first or second week after the season launches, so that they can get everything they need to know to really be successful in the season. And then we just launch and we go, and they're on board, and we make sure we have announcements posted in the group so everybody's up to date on what's going on when, and always know when our meetings are, and have discussion questions and information about upcoming public events as well, and all that.
That's really cool. And I was going to ask you something, and I just got lost in my thought. Hold on. This is what happens.
It happens to the best of us, right?
It does happen to the best of us. I had a question I was going to ask, and I don't remember what it was. I don't know. I'll email you, and I'll put it in the show notes.
We'll add it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Amber, we're just about out of time, but this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for doing this. Love Collective. I think it's amazing. And thanks for taking the time to share it with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, and would love to have anybody and everybody join us.
Absolutely. I'll put it in the show notes, and I will share it far and wide all the month of February.
Awesome. Thank you so much, friend.
Thanks, Amber. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.